12 Most Incredible Finds of Ancient Egypt. Most scholars now believe that isolated civilizations first arose independently at several locations, initially in Mesopotamia around Tigris and Euphrates rivers and, a little later, in Egypt and the eastern Mediterranean. Other civilizations arose in Asia along the Indus River in modern India and the Yellow River in what is now China. All these early civilizations had to invent or discover everything for themselves because, unlike later civilizations such as the Greeks in the West or the Chinese in the East, they had no one to learn from. Therefore, the Egyptians had to invent mathematics, geometry, surveying, metallurgy, astronomy, accounting, writing, paper, medicine, the ramp, the lever, the plow, mills for grinding grain, and all the paraphernalia that goes with large organized societies. So how do we define Egyptian inventions today? It is very difficult to determine because 3,000 years is a long time for discoveries to be made and lost or appropriated by others. For example, the Greeks sometimes take the credit for inventing mathematics, but they learned their math from the Egyptians, then later developed and improved upon what the Egyptian achieved. 3000 BC appears to have been a critical time for the development of technology, especially metal making. The Egyptians as well as the Mesopotamians independently discovered that by mixing a small quantity of tin or with copper ores, they could make bronze, which is harder and more durable. This set off a chain of connected innovations that could not have happened without the primary discovery. Lifelike mummy portraits. While excavating a necropolis in the ancient Egyptian city of Philadelphia, archaeologists unearthed 2 complete mummy portraits, as well as multiple incomplete portraits of people buried in the cemetery. Researchers think the deceased were likely middle class or elite, since back then it would have been costly to commission custom paintings of their likenesses. Because of looting, it's also incredibly rare for archaeologists to find mummy portraits, with the last recorded examples discovered in the 1880s. Temple dedicated to the deity Zeus Cassios. Archaeologists at the Tel El Farama site on the Sinai Peninsula uncovered the remains of a temple dedicated to Zeus Cassios, a deity who was a cross between Zeus and the weather god Cassios. Researchers discovered the temple after noticing sections of 2 pink granite columns poking out of the ground, which they believe once supported the temple's front gate and likely collapsed in ancient times during a massive earthquake. Mummies with gold tongues. During the Greco-Roman period, it wasn't uncommon for mummies to be buried with gold tongues. Ancient Egyptians believed that doing so would help transform the deceased into divine beings in the afterlife. A team of archaeologists found several examples of this special burial practice at a dig site in an ancient cemetery near Quesna, just north of Cairo. The burials also contained a multitude of grave goods, such as necklaces, pottery, and gold scarabs, beetles, falcon shrine, and a cryptic message about boiling heads. Archaeologists stumbled upon a real head-scratcher after discovering a 1,700-year-old shrine featuring 15 headless falcons on a pedestal and a stone monument depicting 2 unknown gods in Berenik, a port on the Red Sea. Found next to the pedestal was an iron harpoon, but what really dumbfounded researchers was the inscription in Greek they spotted in one of the shrine's back rooms, which read, "It is improper to boil a head in here." Gold ring featuring the likeness of the god of fun. Here's further proof that even ancient Egyptians liked to have a good time. While exploring a burial site in Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna, a city south of Cairo, archaeologists found a treasure trove of gold artifacts, including a necklace and 3 rings. One piece of jewelry stood out for its engraving of Bes, also known as the god of fun. Ancient images of the fun-loving deity can be found throughout Egypt. He is often depicted as a dwarf who not only enjoyed playing music and partying but also protected women during childbirth. Protective childbirth tattoos. Before giving birth, some ancient Egyptian women would get tattoos as a form of protection during childbirth. Archaeologists discovered 6 examples of this practice while studying mummies buried at Deir el-Medina, an archaeological site located along the banks of the Nile River. Finding ancient tattoos is a rarity, since the skin would need to be preserved and archaeologists make it a practice to not unwrap mummies. However, in this case, portions of the bodies were exposed, including the lower back of a woman whose ancient ink included black lines and a depiction of Bes, a deity that protected women during childbirth. Vast water tunnel. Archaeologists discovered a 4,281-foot-long, 1,305 meters, tunnel beneath a temple in Taposiris Magna, an ancient city located west of Alexandria, Egypt. It's thought that, at one time, the massive tunnel was used to transport water to citizens and is an exact replica of the Eupalinos tunnel on the Greek island of Samos, which is considered an engineering marvel. Birds in an Egyptian masterpiece. A painting containing birds both in flight and perched next to a marsh is so detailed that modern-day researchers used a copy of it to name the exact species painted on the 3,300-year-old artwork. Archaeologists found the masterpiece a century ago on the walls of a palace at the ancient Egyptian capital of Amarna, but it wasn't until recently that researchers identified the species depicted in the work, including a pied kingfisher, Cerul rudis, a red-backed shrike, Lanius calurio, and a white wagtail, Motacilla alba. New understanding of mummification. Archaeologists completely flipped the script on what's taught in school about mummification. Ancient Egyptians used the burial practice not to preserve the bodies of the deceased, but as a way to guide them toward divinity. The new understanding. Tomb of an unknown queen. On the 100th anniversary of the discovery of King Tut's tomb, a group of archaeologists unearthed the tomb of a previously unknown royal, Queen Neith. The discovery was made at Saqqara, an archaeological site in Giza, and is the first recorded mention of her in the archaeological record. In addition to the tomb, researchers found numerous coffins and mummies, some of which belonged to King Tut's closest generals and advisors.